Welcome to Swift Coaches Academy, a podcast dedicated to bringing health and wellness professionals the uncensored truth behind what it really takes to succeed in the health industry with me, your host, Zenia Wood. As an accredited exercise physiologist and business owner for almost a decade, I'm on a mission to transform the lives of ambitious health professionals like you who want more and are ready to take action to create incredible impact in your careers and unlock financial freedom in your business. So join me as I speak candidly with industry leaders about the struggles and successes from within the trenches through thought-provoking conversations.
In this episode, Zenia and I, Claire, the Swift Ops Systems nerd, talk about all things time value and management. If you can relate to feeling like your time is flying by and you're not being as productive with your time as you'd like to, then listen to the very end of this episode for great advice, beneficial time blocking strategies, and a freebie that will help you make some effective changes in your personal and professional life. Zen, how are you? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What have you been up to? What new things have you been doing? I'm sure you've been up to something exciting, knowing you.
Recently, actually, I'm doing a little trial of yoga, which I've done previously. Just getting back into some more down regulation activities because I'm operate on the
what kind of
high
yoga?
end of this. Yeah. I operate on the high end of the spectrum of activities. So it's been, I've done like inversion play, which is effectively like learning to do handstands, but then also some like flow, more mobility, not mobility, like movement based classes. So not necessarily traditional like yin or like chill yoga, but a little bit more like moving your body, exploring stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you finding
and then
it? Enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's different. Different classes, different teachers. It's something where I was like, I just think I need this right now, not something that I necessarily think I'm going to do long term, but I do like to use it as opportunities to also network with other business owners and be able to see other setups and see how they run their business and do onboarding and things like that. So it's also a little bit trial by looking behind the scenes into other people's businesses by being a client.
Of course you are. I honestly would expect nothing less, to be honest. Oh, what else have you been up to other than yoga?
So I've been away recently. I spent the whole month of May effectively in Sydney. Spent, I think it was like 22 days of the month in Sydney. I did 4 professional development courses in that month, and it was crazy. Wow. I do feel very fortunate though that you and the rest of the team were able to hold the fort, and I wasn't able to, I didn't have to, reduce any of the income for the business or anything like that as a result of it. The commitments that I had in place, I could move them around a little bit, and then everything else sort of ran without me, which is pretty fucking cool considering that was a bit of a pipe dream only like 2 years ago.
I bet. That is cool. A lived experience that you've now got to tick off your little milestone that you've achieved. That's pretty amazing. And I mean, we did well. We didn't, not no offense, but we didn't notice you were gone.
That's the best thing you want to hear, right? As an owner is like, nothing burnt down, nothing. And I think I said to you, I was like, don't contact me unless the building's burning down. And if it's burning down, you probably want to call the fire department, not me anyway.
Yes, they were your final words.
So yes, super appreciative of all the hard work that has come before this point to be able to step away for effectively a full month and still have things run smoothly, and then dive back in and realizing that there's a lot of opportunities to do different things with my time now.
Yeah, awesome. On that note, I actually think it's a pretty good opportunity in this podcast episode to probably talk about or ask you some questions to do with how you manage your time. And I'm sure that it's changed over the years, maybe from even a year ago to maybe 2 years ago, how you looked at your week, how you structured your time and what you wanted from your time. So I think maybe let's dive into perhaps maybe how you used to view your time and how you would value it versus maybe how you use it now, and maybe deconstruct some of your week for us so we can look at a schedule and understand why you do what you do and how you do it.
Okay, cool. So how I used to view time was, and the most important thing or the priority with business was blocking in client sessions, and everything else took second priority / wasn't really booked in my schedule. If there was anything else booked in my schedule, it was my own workout time. And that's kind of it. And it was like all these blocks in my calendar of clients and then training time. And then everything else was kind of white space, but it was really not white space. It was like, do whatever the fuck needs to be done in that time, get all the shit done. Also do a bit of development. Actually was always in my schedule, like personal, professional development, technical skill stuff, always blocked into my calendar, and had some structured time with the company that I used to work for. And outside of that, I just frothed it. So I would spend my weekends doing it if I had nothing else on. Or if I had something, I was like, I'm going to create an ebook and spend my whole month doing that. In hindsight, probably shouldn't take you a month to write a little ebook, but still on the website. It's $22. It's a little change of self blog if you want to have a look at our mobility ebook that I wrote a couple of years ago. It's got some fucking good information in there. But anyway, not the point.
It's quality. I can vouch for that.
The point being that the things that were structured were clients, gym time, and PD, and then like everything else is just get shit done and hopefully go to bed before 11 p.m.
Good. Yes. And so what, in contrast, what does your week look like now?
Yeah, not that, thank God. So very structured. I often say structure and systems set you free. And it's contrary to what I think a lot of people believe. They're like, I want freedom, I don't want structure, I want to do whatever I want. If I want to go to the beach tomorrow when I wake up, I want to do that and whatever. I find that creates a lot more chaos, and we are creatures of habit and routine. And it also helps set you up to be like, I can look forward to that, as opposed to like, oh, am I feeling like doing this today? No, I won't do it. And then 3 weeks go by and you're like, I really just didn't feel like doing any of that, so I didn't. And then you're not 3 weeks ahead. So I try to not schedule based on my feelings, and instead based on things that I value and I want to achieve. And then allow for if shit hits the fan, or chaos time, as we call it. So I am huge on time blocking. I say this to all of our prac students who come in, all our team members who join us, and also have had some actual conversations very recently with our business mentees on time blocking. And that's because most of them do what I used to do, which was like client appointments, and then I'll figure out whatever the fuck else I want to do in my life after all of that is blocked in. And I actually really like working the inverse and going, well, how many hours do I want to work? Let's block out other things like eating food, having like 15 minutes of sunshine in the morning, whatever you want to do, your training, what time you're going to clock off from work, if you are or aren't going to work on weekends or whatever, and schedule those essential, important life things first. And then you actually just at least have a framework of like how many hours you want to do with work, and then put your clients inside those, and time block other shit too. So yes, you're going to need to time block things like programming, and that's probably the first thing that most people block. But then it's like, okay, but if you want to be in the same position a year from now, continue to just do that. If you want to be in a different position from that, then we have to start making these changes now and going, okay, well, so many people, as an example, I see who are like, well, I want to start working in the online space. I'm like, okay, are you showing up online? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, it's probably going to take you some time to build that. So if you want that in 6 to 12 months, we need to start now and not expect that like, oh, I want an online business. It's like, okay, well, you need to actually start to put in the effort there and realize that it's different to the employee mindset of, or even the consumer mindset, I should say, of instant gratification. Like you go to the shops, you pay someone $10, they give you your lunch. Like it's an exchange, you get it immediately, you eat the food, you feel gratified. Versus business and the life of an entrepreneur is who can have the most delayed gratification, and therefore will probably more times than not reap more rewards. Like who can withhold or hold off on, making a quick buck so that they can make much more later down the track, right? Like I spent 6 months of weekends in my bedroom writing content, creating stuff, and didn't get paid for that until we'd actually initiated it and started it. Yet I was putting in a lot of upfront time. And potentially another episode we can talk about was the fact that I actually got people to pay for it before it was completely created, so that I knew there was audience there. I'm not spending 12 months creating something that no one wants. You still have to test it and get people to say that they want it and things like that. But yeah, I guess in terms of structuring time, I need to also allocate time for things that are projects that will pay off in the future and are not instant gratification. So things like, okay, well, we want to, I don't know, create a new program, or I want to do some lower ticket offer or whatever it is. And so therefore creating time and space to create that, to think about that. The time blocking stuff that I know we've talked about, Claire, you mentioned before we started recording, was just little things like not checking emails before midday, or even social media.
It's a big one.
Because I think what we realized is that you're like, well, my role is operations, and so therefore I need to know what's going on at all times. And I'm like, yeah, but you get caught up in what everyone else expects or wants from you if you go straight into DMs or emails or text messages from clients, as long as they're not urgent for like that client session in the morning. Check the urgent ones, obviously, but like even myself in my own routine, I will wake up at 5-ish and I am strong on my my boundary, and sometimes I break this, sometimes I fuck up too, but my boundary that I want to consistently set for myself is that I don't check messages on my phone, emails or social media until after I've done my gym workout at like 7 a.m. So wake up at 5, do shit around the house, leave the house, go do my workout, because what I noticed is that in between my sets in the gym, I'd like look at a message and then that would influence my mood positively or negatively, and then I'd be derailed from my whole training session, and then I hadn't set myself up for success for the day. And I think when we spoke about not looking at emails before midday for you, it was like, okay, like they're important, but they're not urgent, right? Like no one emails you expecting a response in 2 seconds, because it's not a text message, it's not a phone call. So they're expecting a response in a timely manner, but you don't have to get back to someone within even 24 hours from an email realistically. And
absolutely.
Choosing
and
when...
I will actually... Sorry, I'll let you go, but I was just going to add in there for you. And I think when we had that conversation, and you did bring that to my attention that, although it is important for me to be able to get to the team, I'm actually wasting my most productive hours of the day doing really easy tasks. And so when I acknowledge that, between 7 and 10 a.m., I'm the most switched on mentally, but also creative in what I'm doing. I'm basically wasting those tasks for the mind or the headspace that I have at 3 p.m. So, using your calendar and understanding what's best for you and when to schedule that. Like if you're potentially, very creative at 6 p.m. at night, you should probably not be doing emails then, but you should be doing more creative things. And I know you do that very well in your calendar. When I look at your calendar, we always schedule things that you're creating or doing content or things where you need to be very switched on and you're in that zone. We're making sure that it's part of your day that you are feeling that. There's no point, and in fact, I think it's the biggest time waster for me to be trying to write creative emails at 4 p.m. because it's going to take me 3 hours rather than the 1 hour that it might have done at 7. And so, I think that was such a momentum shift for me. Once we had that conversation, I started looking at my calendar and going, okay, let's start time blocking, but also let's start actually making sure that the blocks of time that I am associating with, they are associated with where I feel most or best most of the time. And also as well, I guess you also take into consideration you're not letting yourself feel good about it. It's, that this is a creative moment for me most of the time. Other times now it's discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. On that as well, something that reminded me of is that one thing that I'm really big on to help support my mentees is the people who are running their own business is to have a day where they're working on, not in their business, because it can get, you can go, oh yeah, but I'll just see clients on a Thursday and it'll be fine. And oh, it's just one. But getting into a flow or a rhythm is really hard. And once you're in that state, you want to stay in it as long as you can to be able to get your best work done. And so I'm huge on making sure that our students through the program are choosing one day of the week that's a work day and working on, but not in their business. So what I mean by that is they don't see any clients on that day, no exceptions. And this might take some time, and we might go, okay, will I want it to be Tuesday nights and Friday mornings or whatever, depending on your schedule as well. But I think it's super important because then you actually have a dedicated space to be able to go, I know that on Thursdays, I can get those things done. I'm not going to be interrupted. Yes, I can reschedule clients and stuff outside of that, but Thursday is like my day off, and you it's a non-negotiable basically. That's been something that I've found really helpful for our team as well.
Absolutely. And so when you, let's go back to when potentially you started implementing that into your own schedule way back when you probably didn't have us as a team. What did you notice in the difference of your business and the progress or advancement of Swift between the days where you would just figure out what you do on the 3 hours after you finish training clients and the days where you started time blocking and started going, okay, now I'm doing this. This is a project I'm doing here. Did you notice big changes or significant shifts in productivity or success with time slots now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also noticed when I don't do it recently, I'm also allowing myself easily to be derailed by things like emails or everyone else's priorities for me rather than my own priorities for myself. And I think that if we aren't clear on not only what we want to do, but the outcome of that time or a deadline for something and creating our self-imposed deadlines for those things, I think can be really helpful in terms of going, okay, yes, I want to do social media content on a Monday, but it's like, what's the outcome? Because I will time block. We did this actually this morning. You time blocked some little chunks for podcast snippets for me for like an hour and a half. And I was like, Claire, I did it in 30 minutes. That's all I need. And so the outcome is what I want to achieve. I don't care if it takes I do. I would prefer for it to take me less time rather than more. And the outcome is the most important thing. I'm not going to sit there and continue to create additional pieces of content to waste the time if it's like I could be doing something that's more important or more pressing with that additional time that was blocked out that, hey, it took me a third of the time that was scheduled.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so have you noticed that you start to value, so obviously I'm assuming if I'm, a biz owner and I'm up and coming, I'm a solopreneur, there is going to be a transition between when I start to look at the time that I don't have, that I need to have for my progression of my business. And then I look at my calendar or my week and I go, okay, well, I can't do all of this, and then start to continue doing more if I want to grow my business. What strategies do you implement to decide what parts or what things you start to value your time for versus offloading it, or how did you make those decisions?
Yeah, I think most of us get to a point where we're like, okay, well, I'm happy with or satisfied with the number of clients I have, and I don't feel like I can see more clients. I'm at my version of capacity with that, but maybe I'm not happy with staying here for the rest of my business career. Probably that's people who have some bigger aspirations to create businesses, not jobs for themselves that they're self-employed for. So I sort of went, okay, well, what's my next step? What's my next progression? I need to scale what I'm doing, and I need help because I need time back now into my schedule to do and create some more scalable things, or be able to hire some people and manage that and whatever it is. So I think the first thing for me was like, okay, what can I systemize? What can I automate? What can I delegate? And what can I remove from my week so that I can be more effective with my time and not be doing silly things that I could pay someone half, or not half, way less than half of my hourly rate, but like literally like for $20-ish an hour, you can get a virtual assistant to do some of this stuff. If it's like, okay, I'm going to write the program, I can teach someone else how to upload that into an app. I don't have to do that, even if it's individualized programs every single week. And so now a virtual assistant, a Swift Assist, we do that. The other thing is just systemizing what I do, right? Like, Lottie Wilmot, and he probably stole it from someone else, but he says, if it's done 3 times, it should be systemized. And I really love that concept. We try to almost do it the first or second time if we know it's going to come up multiple times. And so it seems almost silly as a sole trader to be systemizing shit that's in your head because you're like, but I'm the only one who does it, which is often what the not the backlash, but like people resist against. They're like, but it's just me. Why am I writing my own system down? They're like, well, if you plan to have a business, it shouldn't always just be you, because if you're not there, then who's making the money? And if you want to get out of the mindset of sole trader forever, then you're going to have to do some unconventional things. So writing down the systems of that, and then realizing what is realistically not in your like zone of genius, technical, highest level skill set, and going, okay, firstly, is there a system that already exists that can do this for me? I.e., can I, you'd probably be more equipped to speak about this in terms of like Zapier and like, is there a system? Yeah, as the systems, be sure to speak into like some of the stuff where we've like systemized some things in our business where it's like, okay, one event creates a cascade of events, and the internet and AI and technology is exceptional at if A, then B, C, D, E, if you plug in the right system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing to mention on that as well is when you speak about solopreneurs or people who work for themselves, sole traders, and they're thinking, oh, like, do I really need to write this system down? It's just me. I know how to do it. Something that I've noticed when I've been speaking with some of our Swift Assist clients recently is it's actually an amazing tool to use as an audit. And we've spoken about, as you start to write down your system or the way you're doing it, whether you want to call it a system or not, you can kind of look at it and go, that doesn't seem very effective, or that's like a shit ton of time, but not a lot of stuff. And I think that we, in probably a smaller snippet, you and I do this very often. I'll say, this is how we're doing it, or I'll say, hey, how have you done this in the past? Or we talk to the coaches and we talk to our other team members and we go, okay, well, how have you been doing this off the bat? And I'll look at it and go, that seems like a terrible efficiency, or like, let's see how we can fix this or make it better. And so if, in fact, systemizing things in your business is helpful for other people to come in and do those roles, but it's also extremely helpful for you to be able to audit what you're currently doing and being able to go, okay, well, how do I make this better, or not better, but more efficient? And so in that, systemizing helps you to automate. You go, okay, well, this is now not smart or like, economically smart for me to take on this role. How do I get someone else to do it? Or, a computer, AI or whatever. And we've learned that very quickly, I'd say over the last 6 months. Automate everything.
Absolutely. Hey, real quick, I wanted to interrupt this episode to let you know about some incredible masterclasses we have coming up based on anatomy. If you are loving what you're hearing so far, you are going to be blown away by what is inside these masterclasses. We have 2 coming up. The first is on the 15th of June, which is the anatomy of the shoulder. And then the second is the 5th of July, the anatomy of the hip. And these are honestly game changers. We have so much content in here. This is free for anyone who wants to attend. You do have to register, and that is it. I will be personally hosting these, and I cannot wait to see you there. As much as you can, right? Because you're not being paid for the time. Typically, if you're trading time for money, you're not being paid for the time where you're not standing in front of another human being, which is not very helpful. And so you have to account for that. And the more that you can automate that sort of stuff without decreasing, and effectively should increase the quality of your service, or the time that you can spend on servicing them and helping go, okay, well, now I actually have half an hour to go and research the condition of whatever just came up for this client that I am not super skilled in or have a great knowledge set around at this point in time. One thing that I think might be helpful is to actually give an example of this, because people are like, yeah, but like, sister, I don't have, if you have an onboarding process, hopefully you do, right? Like you might send them an email. They need to log into an app. They also need to figure out where they can pay their payment details. They need to maybe know who they can contact for billing support if they need to change their credit card details. We need to maybe give them access to some online education materials. Maybe we also need to make sure that they sign a waiver, like all these different things. That's like 6 things that I've just listed. Most businesses would have most of those. If that's not in like just as simple as an email template, systemize that, because you're like, oh, it takes me 2 minutes. It's like, okay, but 2 minutes times 50 people, and it's probably not 2 minutes because there's exceptions to the rule and you have to add things in here and change things there. So say it's like 5 to 10 minutes per person per 4 weeks, and you do that, I don't know, 20 times a week. That's a lot of hours that you're wasting when there could be a process that supports you. Even if you're the one who initiates that process, I think something like that can be really helpful as a very first step. And one of our action items for anyone today, if you don't have an automated onboarding process that has like links to documents, things to sign, what they need to log into, I don't know, a free guide that you're going to give them, that can be a really easy way to start this process for anyone in their business who doesn't have it.
Absolutely. I would actually add an example to that, that I had a conversation with one of our Swift Assist clients yesterday then. We were speaking about how to automate or systemize the performance testing that she does with her clients, because she was noting that, you know, clients would come in, she'd have to take all the testing results. She was currently doing it by hand, like on a piece of paper, writing it down, then scanning it, sending it to like her email. She was then uploading it to like a spreadsheet that she wanted. And we made note that with her clients, she really liked to sit down with them and actually like have visual representations of movements in charts and things like that. And I was like, yeah, that sounds freaking epic, except, you know, you're spending like an hour and a half every testing, which is every 4 weeks for this client, this coach. I was like, that's an awesome outcome, but a terrible like line to get there. So we talked about, you know, well, what if you just had an email template and I was just sitting down, you just, you know, put all the things in the email template, and then when you sent it up, you had your assistant that put it into a Excel spreadsheet, and then you now know do nothing other than the testing, which you were already doing, and it's not something she can't not do because she is the coach doing the testing. So now the only thing she's doing is that time with her client, which is being paid for, and everything else is now back end, probably taking 10 minutes, and it now has an awesome visual representation of how these client is doing with her session, which is amazing, and they're testing. So yeah, it's a great example that we've sort of shared in terms of how to look at the time that you're doing or spending with people or things and see how you can systemize it to have the same, if not better, outcomes for what you're doing with your clients and your business growth.
And that is why you are the systems behind Swift. Because that's the stuff, right? Like that's the stuff that we need. And if you can save us time and make things more efficient and also less errors, right? If you're manually doing everything, the chances are you're going to fuck it up at once. Not at once, one time at least. So absolutely automating what we can, systemizing what we can, and making sure there's a process to actually review and audit ourselves with that. You mentioned this before. When you're creating systems, it's kind of an audit process. But before knowing what to audit, we want to audit what we're doing. And so if you know what you're doing in every, say, 15-minute interval of your working week or even your home life, right? Like I have done this personally and professionally, and I find that I go, okay, well, what takes me longer? Walking around the supermarket for an hour a week, or having like a pre-templated thing on Coles online shopping and clicking like click and collect and going down and picking it up because it's on my drive home. Cost me $0 to go and do click and collect, but it saves me an hour every single week. And I'm not 10 out of 10 thrilled about going to the shops to pick up my groceries. So what do you mean? Why not? That's like another way that we can... Some people actually are like, oh my God, no, it's cathartic and I love it. And it's my de-stress because I'm away from my kids. And I'm like, I do not get those vibes. I'm like in it. I used to literally, fun fact. Yeah. Literally, I used to. This is how like effective I've become with my time. Before I did click and collect, I used to like go in with the trolley and like put my timer on my watch and be like, wonder if I can get it under 17 minutes today. And then the next day it was like, can I PB my like time and like, can I get the aisles in the, yeah. So it's a skill. And it was, I would be like a speed walking down the aisles and it's like, we can't go too fast because you might hit someone go around the corner. But in terms of systematic or automating your time, that's what I'm looking at, right? Like if I can, like it also became a little bit of a game. It was fun. It was less like, oh, I have to get the apples again, and more like, well, the apples are on the way to the bananas, and I don't want to have to come back. So very side note, but you can gamify these things with yourself, and maybe that's something you do with your programming. You're like, if my programming is due at 4:00 on a Thursday, you're probably going to finish at 3:55 on a Thursday. If you're like, I want to do this efficiently in no more than 20 minutes and you put a timer on for yourself, it's another way that you can look at, like, are you fucking around and did you open Instagram 3 times in that time frame that you were meant to write a program? Or are you actually being focused on the task at hand and having like a representation of literally a counting up timer of like, how long have I spent on this? And it's like, what else could I do with that extra 20 minutes that it took me where I did fuck around? So that's something. Did you want to talk about?
I'll note on that as well.
Great.
Yeah, what I was going to say, one thing I did, I heard on a podcast I was listening to yesterday morning was, just as we do with our clients, we have to set hard goals for ourselves, because without a hard and fast goal, or an end date, sorry, not a goal, hard and fast end date, you give yourself that flexibility without the accountability of being like, oh, like I did want to finish those emails today, but like I do have a little bit of time on Friday morning, like I'll just shove it a minute. But for me, that's been a really effective tool is when I go, okay, from like, 8 till 10 this morning, I'm doing email writing. My phone is off. It's on do not disturb. Like, so if anyone, including yourself, wants to get hold of me, because it's now like I'm not here. And I put it in a kitchen bench and I go to my office and I do my thingy. And I've noticed like, but then you have to reward yourself. And I remember listening to the podcast yesterday morning, they were talking about you have to set the hard and fast deadline and then you have to reward. And if you don't do the reward, it sort of, you kind of never get that like dopamine hit of, yes, I did the thing and now I'm kind of mini celebration. And so for me, it's like, I have these like really fun teas that I like to drink and I call them my tea treat. I mean, like they're 50 cents a bag, but like it's a treat for me. And so once I finish my like productivity 2 hours, I'm allowed to go make a tea and come back, and then I can get my phone, see if anyone's died and come back and start doing different types of work. But I find it's really helpful to, just as we do with our clients, we set ourselves goals and deadlines, because the accountability that we have with our clients is exactly what we need to have with ourselves. And if you can't find that for yourself, or the discipline you're finding a bit tricky, because, social media has the whole point of us is to want to go for those, checking it for the dopamine. I mean, it's a bit of a hard task to stop going for that. I do think it's helpful to give yourself small snippets of time where you're like, not checking anything else, just doing this thing, and then the reward at the end is super helpful. So if you're trying to get into time blocking, that's probably a really nice introductory time to give yourself a bit of a go and take that activity and see how it goes for you.
Absolutely. I love that. I agree with all of it. I am shit at rewarding myself. I'm like, on to the next thing. Or like, the reward was that I did it in under 20 minutes. Or the reward was that we signed another client up. And it's like, no, you need an actual, that's the outcome. That's not the reward. So speaking to that with our business mentees as well, super, super important. I was going to say before, did you want to talk about the Systemize It task that we use with our business mentees?
Yes, I would love to, because, I love the systems. But we have an awesome G sheet that you have actually created, which everyone can find in the description notes of this episode. But basically, you'll be able to bring it up. It's a G sheet that allows you to look back on your week. And the best way to do it is to look back, not forward, because what we plan to do isn't always what actually happens. So look back on your week, look back on your day, and write down every single thing that you have done, how long it took you, whether you enjoyed it, or a scale of like 1 to 5 if you enjoy it, and the direct ROI on that task. ROI meaning the return on investment. So whether it has a direct input to your bottom line for your business, that kind of thing. Note all of these things down. And then you have a starting point. You can see where you're spending your time. You can see the ratio of how many things are lead generation tactics, how many things are just working in your business, how often you're working on it. And then from there, you can go, okay, I can notify, and I will make mention too. I think that there is sometimes a fine line between choosing things you enjoy that may not be a high ROI and keeping them a little bit in your schedule if it's something you really enjoy to do, but also making note that, you know, if you are the CEO or the owner of your business, your main objective is to be sales and the growth of that. So looking at anything that isn't in that category or what you're responsible for, and seeing how you can offload it to someone or a new team member, maybe a Swift assistant, maybe another assistant that is less per hour than what it takes for you to do those tasks. Anything to note on that, Zen? You've used it obviously a few times.
Yeah, I find that people often miss things out. And so sometimes you want to look retrospectively, and then also like every hour of that day, like have an alarm that goes off on your phone. What did I do for the last hour? Because you don't notice that you mindlessly scroll for 45 minutes every single day or whatever it is. And then in the time that you are like checking emails or doing whatever it is, writing down, like you said, what the task is, what's involved, what level of task it is. So when we say level of task, we mean, is it a level 1? I could teach my 10-year-old sister how to do this task, aka requires instruction but no real skill. Sorry, Lila, you have a lot of skill. She's also 13 now, just in case she's listening, because she's like my super fan. She's like, oh, you posted something on YouTube, but we were sitting next to each other. How did that happen? And I was like, oh, well, I have a Swift assistant. It's actually really, really cute. I love it. But yeah, so level 1 is if a 10-year-old could do it with a little bit of instruction, it's probably not something you need to be doing. Level 2 would be not. Like... Yeah. So that's effectively like admin or something like that. Then you've got like a level 2, which is someone who needs some sort of skill. Maybe they are a coach and they need to understand exercise prescription to write a program. That would be a level 2. Level 3 is like a management thing. So you need some sort of executive level decision making. And then level 4 is your like CEO, like higher level growth, scaling, strategies, partnerships, all of that sort of stuff. So levels 1 through 4, it's all written in the document in terms of who is capable of doing this task. And so you then look at not only do I love this out of 5 or 10, but also what level of task is it? So if it's a level 1 task and you're a 0 out of 10, then that should be the first thing that you offload, because you're going to feel great offloading that, because you're like, I don't need to be the one checking that Sally paid her $100 and she also had her session on Monday. Like that's not something I need to do. That's something that someone else could absolutely do. And I'm also not like super excited but being like, oh my God, it came in and everything works. Like that's not what lights me up. So I'd prefer to spend more time, you know, and lots of people in this scenario listening are probably wanting to spend more time in front of clients, or they're wanting to spend time doing research or programming or whatever. And then going, okay, I could do part of the program maybe. And then part of it could be done by an assistant adding it to the app or whatever it is. Lots of things like social media. People might be like, okay, well, I know it needs to be done. I also know that I need to be the one to do it because it's just me. But when we do hire a coach, it's technically a level 2 activity. So that's something I would look to palm off and delegate to someone else with some skill in that area. We're probably not doing this a whole lot of justice. The workbook, the activity, the G Sheet or the Excel online version sheet has so much room for you to literally analyze and audit everything you do in that week. And then and the cool thing that actually is added in there we haven't spoken about is how many hours per week do you spend doing this task? So it's like emails, I spend 3 hours a week. It's like, okay, if you offload this task, if you automate it, you systemize it, or you delegate it, you get 3 hours back every single fucking week for eternity. Back in July. Like, this isn't a thing where you do it once and you're like, oh, okay, well, now it's like we get people to update this every like 3-6 months and go, okay, what are you doing now? What can we automate again? What can we delegate now? Now that we've leveled up, what else can we remove, automate, systemize, whatever it is? So it's a really cool living, breathing document to be able to review where you're at, where you're spending your time, what you love, what you can offload, and then find those things that you can delegate, remove, systemize. You don't even have to hire a Swift assistant or anyone like that. Start with the shit first that you can automate or systemize, i.e. email templates, or like simple things that you know every single time someone asks to pause their membership, I go through this 4-step process. Like, is that written down? Could someone else end up doing it in the future? Is it something where you could have them, you know, instead of texting you to reschedule a session, could they just go to a link? Is that an email that gets sent out to them every time their session is coming up? Another thing that we've done, right? There's so much. You can do this for days and days, and it's cool because you gamify it, because you're like, cool, when I delegate this task, I get 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours back into my life every single week. Sure, it's going to take you maybe an hour or two to create a system so that that's sorted, and it is going to be done ongoing. But the ROI on your time of getting that back week on week on week after that is exponential.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think even when you were saying some of the options or some of the examples you're giving us, it's even as small as if you reply to every DM, like you write out the message. Now you systemize that where you have a template on IG, like just write out like a whole bunch of different scenarios and then type it up and make it a template on IG. Some people didn't know you could do that. You can. But that's, yeah, it's just small steps. And I think that there are also, you know, you kind of like alluded to it before. Sometimes you might have a level 3 task where, or, you know, you're a coach and so therefore you have to be in front of that client doing that session. But what part of some of those things can also be taken out and delegated? So can you break some of the actual tasks or responsibilities apart where you're like, all right, well, I have to do this part, but you can do all this, or someone else can do all this, or I can automate it and I can, you know, have this happen separately, which we've done a lot because effectively we want to make sure that people can take over other people, and you want to have a system or a systemized way that your business runs so that if at any moment someone could cover somebody else, someone would know how to take over. If you were sick, you would, you know, be able to get some help, or someone, you know, I could log in at some point and go, I know how to do this, or I'm getting some help. And so that's where this all sort of comes into play. So I just don't think you're ever too little a fish in the business world to ever start doing some of this at least. And this is a great G sheet to get ahead and give it a go.
Yeah. Or too big. Like I know we work with businesses who clock easily over 1 million, who I not contract out to, I consult with. And some of this shit they haven't done, right? Like it doesn't matter. And this isn't like poking fingers at anyone. This is saying that we all have the opportunity, the ability to systemize more of what we're doing. And this is only going to accelerate and widen the gap between those who choose to systemize and those who choose to go, but I like pen and paper. And if you still go, I like, and I write, I have my client diary like written down. I'm like, okay, but your client can't get your diary and cross out their session time and like they're going to have to manually contact you. And I'm sure that there aren't many coaches who are excited by being like getting 5 text messages a week being like, can I reschedule my session? It's just fucking annoying. So they don't need to talk to you. You don't need to talk to them. And everyone's happier by being able to see a full schedule and choose where they want to put things in the week. And I think it just makes a world of difference when you end up doing more of what lights you up and more of your genius zone. So I think we should probably leave it there. We've really dived into this today. Like Claire mentioned, the Systemize It G Sheet is editable. You just need to create a copy of it. It will be linked in the show notes for you. Download that, absolutely. That is our present for anyone who is listening today. And if you use it, and if you find it helpful, or you think there could be an edit or a change, DM me on Instagram at Swift Coaches Academy. I'm always all ears to hear about what's working, what's not working, any other questions or comments that you guys have. And that should be our actionable for today. So I think we're all good. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, love it. Good chatting to you.
See ya. Before you go, don't forget those 2 anatomy masterclasses are coming up. The first one's on the 15th of June, the anatomy of the shoulder. Second one is the 5th of July, anatomy of the hip. I cannot wait to see you there. Link in the show notes for all of the information for you to register, and I will see you there. Did you find something valuable in this episode? If so, I'd like to ask a tiny favor. If you have 30 seconds now, I'd love you to follow or share the podcast. That way, we can continue to bring you more real, raw, and uncensored stories from industry leaders. We also love hearing from you and what you loved about every episode. The best way to reach out is to DM me personally on Instagram @SwiftCoachesAcademy. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.